So if someone who scores, for example, I think if the cutoff mark is 135, someone from eastern part of Nigeria scores 135, someone from the northern part of Nigeria scores below that, and that person is accepted over the other person. Now we have an issue there. So even the army aside, in terms of education, I cannot be scoring a certain mark and then someone is scoring. The northerners have more numbers than any other state.
So here's the logic. If I live in the north, right? So I'm not from the north, but if I live in the north and I'm trying to get into a school in the north, they will use the same cutoff for me as they are using for northerners.
If you're familiar with how things go on in the world, you would have heard the word racism so many times. But again, if you're Nigerian or African, it's very easy to complain about racism. Meanwhile, we have something that is almost as serious as racism, if not more serious. And that is tribalism and stereotype. Both of them are cousins. So today on the Center Side podcast, we're going to talk about the negative effects and how to go about this very terrible phenomenon in our society. My name is Oga Peter. You're welcome to the podcast where we talk about social and cultural issues and everything in between. So, I have very interesting gentlemen to talk about these things. And somehow I don't feel very comfortable that it's a lot of testosterone. Well, that's fine. David, welcome again.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Alabi Yellow.
Thank you, Peter. The name is Abi.
Abi Wench. Right?
The G is usually silent.
Yeah. The G is silent. So it's Abi who?
When?
You don't mean it. We learn every day. Even though I don't know why learning this doesn't really too much. But tribalism. Do you believe that Nigerians are tribalistic?
Yeah, very. As a matter of fact, in some places, you might call someone's name wrong and then they behead you for it. So.
Wait. Say that again.
You might actually call someone's name wrong and they behead you for it.
It used to happen or it still happens?
I was just... Yeah.
Okay, wait. Okay. Because you covered your eyes, so I'm not able to know if you mean it or you don't mean it.
Okay, but then again, it's actually a serious issue in the country, and it's also one of the basic tools that the so-called politicians and godfathers use to actually divide us and make sure that they get to win, right? Or they get to have their say, or they get to get what they want. Because if we are focusing on being tribal, this person is not from my tribe, this person is not from my state, this person doesn't look like me, this person doesn't have my ideas. There's no way we can unite to want the same thing. I'm always going to want something different from what you want. I'm always going to project a different ideas to what you have.
Yeah.
And while we are doing that, they are pushing their own agenda on us, and then they have people that support them and people that don't. But it's also easy for a ruler to have a tribe divide people while they have their own secret agenda. And also, if I'm being tribalistic about everything that I'm doing, so why should Oga Peter benefit from what I'm trying to implement? Why can't I just get someone from my tribe, someone from my family to benefit? So, meanwhile, Oga Peter actually has more knowledge or more to offer than the person I'm bringing, but. Yeah, and the capital is not from my side, so why don't I just get
But that is because you're talking about you need competence, and then because you know that if you don't get a competent person to do this thing, it would affect you.
It doesn't matter if I'm tribalistic.
Yeah, but
I think he's talking about nepotism now.
Yeah, that's the distant cousin. All of them are in the same family. But what about a situation where what you would need me to do, for example, the context, what you need me to do will not really affect you whether it's done well or not. Talking about government, if I want to appoint somebody into a government position,
Yes.
whether they do it well, they don't do it well, as long as my person is chopping. I think that's the point you're trying to talk about. Where
Yes, it's actually a big part of it.
because if I run a company, right, and I know that
It's going to affect.
my brother will run it down, I don't think I'll be foolish enough.
Have you not
employ
been
my brother.
to a company where we only have a particular tribe
Yeah,
at the upper echelon?
I have. But at least as long as they are running it well, it doesn't matter to those people, and they probably would not think that they're doing something wrong. I mean, shouldn't I prioritize my people?
It should, if they can do it. But how many of those companies or how many of those organizations have you seen that has a particular set of people running the affairs and then they excel?
I think
Because
they're actually.
there's thing about diversity,
Yeah.
right? We are all going to have different ideas.
True.
So if every one of us have the same idea, we're not going to move as far as getting other ideas from someone else.
Yeah, but we can all be from the same tribe and have different ideas. Can't
can.
we? Can't we, David?
There's a possibility. I think there are two sides to what he's trying to say. If you have people from the same tribe that
Yeah.
can do the job, that's fine. But if you don't have, you're getting someone that's probably not qualified. That's another thing. So most times, so there's the issue of qualification.
Yeah.
Then there's the issue of tribalism. Now, this issue of tribalism stems from the fact that we delude ourselves that we are united in diversity when we are not.
But do you think being united is a concept that would ever be true?
It's personally, I feel like it will never be true.
Why?
It will never be true because, like
Oh,
I said,
really?
I was, leaning towards his own sentiment. If, for example, someone becomes a president, not everybody or one president can decide to say, "Oh, I know someone from my side who
can do
this job, so I get people from my side because I want my people around me."
Yeah.
Then another person could probably say, "Okay, I know someone from another tribe that can probably do this job. I would like this person." So it depends, but now, most of the time, what we always tend to see is the problem I have with that is if we have unqualified people in that position, that's where it becomes a problem.
Okay, so tribalism, it's not a problem.
Now,
I'm sorry.
So I'm trying to qualify it.
Qualification.
Yeah.
okay, now there are people you talked about, or you talked about a position in an organization. If the person is qualified for that position and the person is from your tribe, nobody will bat an eye.
So
But there have been cases where you have someone who is not qualified for that position, but because the person is from your tribe, you are putting them in that position. Now, that's where the real problem stems from. If you want to have someone who is from your tribe who is probably not qualified, there have been issues of people being qualified, but because they are from certain tribe, they don't qualify for certain positions. There have been this clamoring of, in terms of the Nigerian armed forces. When was the last time you saw someone from a certain tribe rise to the position of authority in
But
Nigeria?
is it possible that people from that certain tribe are not necessarily interested?
why are we camouflaging?
Yeah, so I'm wondering why you're mentioning certain tribe. Like,
Okay,
what,
now, so-
what tribe is
so-
that?
So there are lots of things. If you check the cutoff mark for, say, unity schools now in Nigeria, there are different cutoff marks for different states. The northern part of Nigeria usually have the lowest cutoff mark.
Yeah.
Now let me talk about what I was saying before in terms of the Nigerian armed forces.
Yeah.
People have complained that because they are from the eastern part of Nigeria, they don't get accepted into this thing
Into the
easily, as easy as someone else would. So if someone who scores, for example, I think if the cutoff mark is 135, someone from eastern part of Nigeria scores 135. Someone from the northern part of Nigeria scores below that, and that person is accepted over the other person. Now we have an issue there.
Okay, so there's actually more science to that because
Yeah, I'm curious.
It's regional. It's been regional. So
Yeah.
A certain region has different cutoff because obviously we have a lot of people applying from different regions. And for instance, if in the east we have 1 million people applying, right, and out of the million you can only pick 1,000, and we have about 5,000 people scoring 90,
Yeah.
you know that the cutoff has to go higher than
Okay.
95.
Okay, I get.
But if you have people from the north, you want to pick 8,000, and 500. I mean, we have less than 1,000 people that are scoring 80. You know, the
So you
cutoff
have
has
to
to
bring
go
it
below
down.
80.
But do you think it's fair? Don't you think that it affects the quality of our output?
I
And
think
then because why then do the people who their cutoff is lower gaining more ground than the people who are supposed to be better in
okay.
terms of
So
that cutoff?
if we are talking about military, I don't think we can apply that to this because
Yeah. Well, so the
this
military,
has actually
it's a
started
very
from the roots, right? While the Easterns and the Westerns are pursuing white collar education and jobs, all the Northerns have basically is military.
well,
So
well.
they've actually been there from the ground.
For a while, yeah. So they have their
You can't
people
use that,
more in
yes.
strategic
So you
places.
can't actually use that as a yardstick.
And of course, there's also the part where they say Easterners are not really interested in the military. There's also the part. It's just that I think where you're coming from is they don't grow to highest ranks, right?
Yes.
You
If
don't have.
if if they don't have a point of entry, how do they continue? And this is what we're talking about. I talked about bringing someone where you have my people. If you don't have that much Eastern people in the army, they feel left out. Okay, there's been cases of where even in Nigerian police force,
Yeah.
how many people they've been saying, oh, probably, oh, Frankenberg is supposed to be the next this, next that. But
Yeah. The next I,
they've always been things like, oh, he
they feel
doesn't get
like
to
he's
that
being
position.
sidestepped
Do you
because
understand?
it's.
Recently, I saw someone talking about the fact that they applied several times to join the Nigerian army, but he did not get in.
Yeah,
So
but
even the army aside, in terms of education, I cannot be scoring a certain mark and then someone is scoring. The Northerners have more numbers than any other states.
So here's a logic. If I live in the north, right? So I'm not from the north,
Yeah,
but if
yeah.
I live in the north and I'm trying to get into a school in the north, they will use the same cutoff for me as they are using for northerners.
Yeah. But they will still find a way.
No.
You know why? I was born there.
Yeah.
I lived all my life in the north, right? And there's a problem with this thing, state of origin thing.
Yes.
Do you understand?
It's everywhere.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not about north now. In Nigeria, the state of origin is a big problem because it also helps to create all this nonsense. But just to clarify that part, there was a scholarship that we entered for, right?
Okay.
I got that scholarship with a few other people there. You know why I wasn't able to get the benefits? Your guess are good as
You're
mine.
not sure.
Because I'm from the southeast. And the sentiment was, how can this person come all the way from that side and come and take what belongs to us
Well, that's still
for something that I was clearly qualified for? Do you understand?
now. This is where I'm going to talk about what he said, that if you have someone else in from your side or from your tribe that is also qualified for the opportunity, why won't you go for them, right? So you're not the only one that qualified for it. That's why I'm saying, can you?
Yeah, but I beat other people because there are metrics.
Yeah.
There are
Would you
metrics.
say that you were the best or you were the
Like I said,
standout?
according to the metrics, it was already published. Do you understand? Because it was an international, what do you call it, opportunity.
Okay.
Do you understand? But I was at their mercy because it's the people that they feel that would end up getting it. So it feels a situation where somebody who was number one, and that was me, was sidestepped, and they took 2 and 3
Okay.
because they needed only 2 people.
That's
But
actually
number
what I'm
one is
trying to
from
get
a
to.
certain place, and he can't come all the way to come and collect something that belongs to us.
But that's part of the problem we are discussing. So
Yeah,
So I think, like you pointed out, so in terms of education, so we have that play out. You see people. Can I use Delta State? Delta State University. They give priority to Deltans
yeah, but
first.
so there's also, so we need to balance this thing here. In the education or admission, whatever, there's something they call catchment area.
yeah.
And then there's also the privilege for indigenous, because it would make sense that this is a state-owned university. They want their indigenous to be able to go to school.
Of course.
Because your state has a university as well.
So, you
So,
can
so
as
if you
well
feel
find
that
that.
much about it, you can as well go and school. So in that instance, that would make a little bit of sense,
Of course.
to me, because I don't think I would call that tribalism, because
That's what you're
every
saying.
state does it. It
Does
feels
that.
like it's an
It's
institutionalized
there everywhere.
Yes.
catchment area and all
Right.
of that. But I think that let's look at the aspect of tribalism that's more disturbing. The ones we are seeing on social media, the ones where tribes are insulting each other. Do you understand? Especially after the 2023 election, where young people have allowed themselves to be used, like you said, used by these people to be insulted. It's scary. Like when you see these things,
Yeah.
you would fear for the future of this country, because it feels like a time would come where I would see someone from a certain tribe on the road, and it's either I want to harm the person or I'm afraid this person would
It
harm
has
me.
happened.
It happened the last election.
It has happened.
Do you think that we are doomed? Do you think that there can be a solution to this? Because it has become really, really endemic. Like I said, it has taken a scary dimension. What do you think we need to do, apart from having conversations about it anyway? But what do you think we need to do about it?
Okay, so there isn't much that can be done because this is actually this is coming from information that is being passed down across generations. What are you teaching your kids? What are you instilling in them? What exactly are you telling them to do? How are you telling them to see
The
their
other people.
neighbors or the other
So it,
tribes?
it boils down to
So
family.
it's that's where it starts from. That I mean, that's the easiest thing that is in our control.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only thing we can control, really.
I think that is true, because again, when we were much younger, you had friends from all these
Tribe,
tribes,
yeah.
and everybody lived, especially those of us who grew up in the north. We had friends from all the. In fact, some of us will now start bearing northern names,
Names.
because of how we related to, and that takes me to tolerance. And there are three major tribes, blah blah blah. So, but let's use that because nobody make us. Let's just use that. I don't like it, but it's what it is, right? This might be a bit problematic, but do you believe, or I believe in my experience, I've lived in the north, I'm from the east, now I'm in the west, so I think I've interacted and I understand, the psyche of all these people. I can see that the northerners are a little bit more tolerant than these other people. Now, again, because there's also the stereotypical aspect of it where these other two tribes believe that they are more exposed and therefore they are
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
And I believe that some of the things that they are now doing could be reactionary. That for so long, these people have always thought that they are better than us. Do you agree, really, that a certain tribe seems to be more tolerant than the others? Or do you think that it's the same thing across board? Everybody decrease.
I think I would agree with what you said. I've never lived in the north. But I
But have
think
you had experience with
yes, I've
northerners?
had. Okay. I remember when I was to go for service, I was to serve in Benue State, and I entered the bus going to Kogi. I planned to stop by Kogi and then get another bus going to Benue Makodi. And in the bus, it was late, and it was during this time when there was, I think there was issue in Kogi State. By 6, 7, everywhere was, completely deserted. But I met someone in the bus who never knew me, but because it was late, he accommodated me that night. Took me to the park the next morning, made sure I got, a bus going to the NYC camp. And it was something that I knew that might be hard to find in other places. And according to other stories I've heard from other people, I feel like the Northerners are more accommodating, than other tribes. That's just my own personal experience.
So,
Do you
just for
believe-
context,
Yeah.
Kogi is not exactly not,
Yeah, so because of what he was saying, he said there are just three. So if we're probably going to look at that,
Yes, but you know
in
that
terms of-
geographically somehow they classify them as
North.
not.
No, they're not.
Yeah, because they said those people are not central.
So yes, so the thing is, it's everywhere. Can I
definitely.
ask what year was this?
That was
2013.
2014, 2014.
Come on, life was good then. Life was good then.
Well,
how many cases of beheading do you hear 2014?
Well,
I mean,
wait, but you know that was also the height of this tribal
Yes,
killing
it's
in
been,
in
becoming.
Benue State and all.
so it's those are isolated incidents
Yes, that's
compared to what we have now.
yes, that.
Right? What we have now, in fact, it's happening everywhere now. It doesn't even have to be tribalistic. It happens everywhere.
Yeah, so that one
So
is
that
insecurity.
was a good life. Yeah, that was a good time. You can pretty much do anything for anyone back in the days.
But
Now
do you
I'm sure
see
that person would think twice before accommodating you at that time.
do you see the tribal dimension in Lagos that even in accommodation you're looking for to rent an accommodation, the landlords tell you specifically
I
they
think
don't want
that's
people from
that
certain
that would
tribes.
be based on experience. I can tell you a little bit because if we are going to talk about it, certain tribes have this this behavior of having every one of their family members in the house. Nobody likes that. As a homeowner, nobody likes that, right? So if you're renting out an apartment to someone, you know that in the next couple of weeks, you are going to have a whole lot of people in there, and a lot of people don't like that.
But I'm curious.
Then two, we have a certain tribes that how do I put it?
Just say you can just.
Yeah,
That's
it puts it-
troublesome.
So what tribe is that?
Based
please?
on experience, as a landlord, you've had Igbo guys, you've had Hausas, you've had Yorubas, and it was easier for you to relate with the Yoruba person or with an Igbo person. When someone that is not Yoruba or Igbo is coming, you'll be like, well, it's easy for me to relate with the Yoruba person, or let me just stick to what I've experienced.
And that's stereotype.
But that's also exactly, and
It
that's
is,
also
but-
isolated and it's stereotypical. But do you think, because I see also like there's a conspiracy angle to it where people specifically, even new houses,
Yeah.
specifically say they would prefer, and the reason why that's problematic is because it's happening in Yoruba land.
Okay, do you know
That's why
why?
I said.
And the
based on-
Yoruba landlord tells you he doesn't want Igbo tenant.
Do you
That
think?
Igbo
Do you
tenants are
think?
problematic.
Do you think that would happen in the north?
Do you get what I'm saying now? It's based on
But
experience.
the northerners, yeah, a northern person would not tell you he prefers a Yoruba, Hausa, or no,
Never.
they would not do that.
Are you saying never?
I mean, there would be situations where that would happen, but
Exactly.
in comparison, they would.
the
Like I said, I
percentage
live.
of those.
Do you know that?
In comparison, how many
Yes.
people are actually trying to get an apartment in the north, and how many people are trying
Come
to
on, if you live in the north, you don't live under the tree.
Yeah, but
You would need to get an apartment.
basically,
And in situations where even as core members, for example, you want to serve, and even when it comes to stereotypes, the northerners have less of what you call it now, prejudice against the other people in terms of how we describe each other. Like if somebody wants to call you
that's agreeable.
they call you aboki. Meanwhile, aboki is a very nice term.
Term,
It
yeah.
simply means friend.
Guilty.
But we have messed it up so that it represents.
Presents, yeah.
So that's a shade that these people, they are not really
superiority complex.
exactly that
Or
complex that
superiority.
we are better than these people. And also just to balance things up, and some of these Igbo people say that it's because the Yoruba people cannot stand their guts. So that they misinterpret their confidence to be arrogance and all. Do you think there's a truth in that? Do you think there's truth in that? Do you think that, because like you said, you might have an experience with a troublesome Igbo, but again, it's stereotype because how does Mr. Mr. Obi's trouble transcend to Mr. Emeka's this thing?
So while okay, so we can't really be judging people with what they do or how they come to experience or how they come to believe what they believe in, right? You call it stereotype, call it whatever, but people's personal experience counts, or it also shapes their belief.
Yeah, so it would then mean that you never had a good experience from somebody from that tribe.
Based on percentage, you don't have good experiences.
That's, for example, because percentage also can be deceptive. maybe you've only met 2 people from that tribe, and those 2 people you didn't have good experience with them.
experience with. It
There are
clouds your
millions of them.
judgment
So
about
what
them.
percentage do you want to use? Because what's your sample size from which that percentage is
So
drawn?
would you be willing to take that risk?
Well, that's another part that's where problem is, you know,
So if I may
because
ask, have you had a problem with someone outside your tribe that probably informed your decision, or for you to hold them against prejudice?
I'm not holding anyone against prejudice.
I'm just asking if you've had any personal
So,
experience.
generally, I would say I'm a very difficult person to hate.
no. So that's speaking to your person, and
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think I
So
can
I
agree with
won't
that.
be able to. I won't be able to speak to that. I served in Jos, right, and I didn't stay in the Coppers Lodge for long, so I was outside there. I saw things. I have experiences with some of the locals.
So would you agree that the locals were nice to you? Were
That's why
they?
I said that part is in the north, and I haven't been to the north. But yes,
Yeah, but just qualify as not
a
in
revelation
the
of the
context
North.
of Nigeria.
so they were nice. Yes, the locals were, but we have northerners in Jos too, and not so much.
Anyway, I think I understand what you're saying, because when it comes to that, we're using like a broad,
Yeah.
because
Right.
at the end of the day, it's a spectrum, and the tribes in Jos are many,
Yeah.
and
Same
you
with
can't
Kogi too.
say Plateau people are not necessarily Hausa people, and they are not necessarily Fulani.
They're not even Hausa.
Yeah, they're not
necessarily
they are
from
not
us.
Fulani people, they are not Hausa people. So it might be a situation where the encounters you had, the negative encounters you had, might not be from people who are indigent,
Yes.
in that particular place. So I think that would have a way of clouding or maybe informing your decision to say, maybe not, and all of that. So I understand that. But in general, like you said, I think that the solution would be down to the family, what we're telling ourselves,
It comes from the roots.
and the conversations we have within us. And do you think there's a bit of envy and jealousy in some of these things? Like you don't like the way these people are. For example, you say the way Igbo people throw money around, which personally, as an Igbo person, I don't like that. It doesn't make any kind of sense. But do you think that people have a problem? Other tribes have a problem with these people like to show off too much, and it's irritating.
Have you been to Yoruba parties too?
But yeah, I have. Yeah, I have.
Okay, let me say, have you been to rich Yoruba parties?
Yeah, but I've seen. I'm not rich, but I've seen rich Yoruba parties. I see how they do too. But
It
you know when
doesn't
you do
matter.
things,
It doesn't
in
matter the
comparison.
tribe.
Yeah.
Rich is rich. If you have the money to throw, you throw it.
Yeah, but do you agree? It's a stereotype, but I think there's a little sense in it. Like, for example, a Yoruba person that is worth $1 billion would not be as loud
As loud, yes.
as an Igbo person that is worth maybe just 300 million.
Okay.
If you're in generality.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's
And I find that even as an Igbo person annoying, But do you think that there's a bit of truth in you don't even have that much,
Yeah,
and you're
and you're
this
being so
loud?
loud.
yeah, exactly. That's true too.
I think that was so. Let's get the last words in, right? As an Igbo person, do you identify as an Igbo person? I feel very terrible using that word. Do you identify? But would you call yourself an Igbo person?
Everybody's identifying this.
Exactly. You have to
Yeah.
identify as something.
Yes, I am.
But you're from Delta State.
Yes, I'm from Delta State.
Delta people usually say they are not Igbo.
Yeah, there is that, and that's because of the fight with tribalism these days. Because even in the Igbo tribe itself, there is division in Igbo tribe.
Let's-
so there is division in division.
So let's get a few minutes in that. What do you mean by that? Do you mean that the larger Igbo people are discriminating against the Delta Igbo people? Is that what you mean?
Maybe.
Okay, so help me
So
clarify.
in terms of, I think everybody is now trying to probably identify as something they are not. But if, for example, you see me and you ask my name and I tell you my name is Tochiko, the first thing you assume is that, oh, you are Igbo. You understand. But because of some of these things you've said about the main Igbo tribe, the Igbo parts of this are not being conscious about these people.
So they don't want to be identified with a stereotype that follows the
comes
Igbo
with,
tribe.
you understand that?
So that's what it is.
That's what it is. So,
So
so everybody is trying to carve a niche out for themselves and probably identify as something and probably stand on their own. So that's where the problem is.
So some people would rather deny their identity just so they cannot be tainted by.
Are they Igbos?
He would answer that. Are you people able?
Yes, we're evil.
So what?
So the thing there is, like I've said, the problem is until we can resolve this idea, because you talk about
But
family.
you've met people from Delta who will tell you they're not Igbo. You've met
Yeah,
them,
so
right?
it's just like you talked about just so there are different tribes in Delta State. You know, there's the Delta speaking part, there's the Jaw, the Yoruba.
Yeah, so
the
the
Shekeri,
Igbo speaking part of Delta, right? They are Igbo people.
they are Igbo people.
But again, I know someone, a friend, who bears Oluchi, tells me
She will
she's
tell
not
you
Igbo.
she's not Igbo.
I know someone who bears Chukudi and
will
tells
tell
me
you.
he's not Igbo. So why do we have Igbos and non-Igbos from the same place?
Like you talked about, I feel like they are trying to avoid certain things.
But that means that you've essentially lost your identity. You don't belong to any, because they are not Yoruba.
Yes, exactly.
They are not Ijo. They are not Urobo.
So the division itself is
Yeah.
a problem.
So when you meet such people, what do you tell them? Like, I'm really curious.
I'm indifferent when it comes to that. You know, but I think I was having a discussion with someone recently, and he talked about the fact that people from Delta Igbo, are skeptical about selling lands to people from, or people, Igbo people in particular. They would prefer to probably want to sell for themselves, or even if they're going to sell for external, they give them a different price compared to that. So you can see that there is these things, because we've suffered a lot as a country in general in terms of all these things, and it stems from the fact, you know, it contributed to the civil war that was fought. Many people are still holding on to the events of that war. So when you talk about family, for example, there is a need to, should I say, forget? Because you can talk about family today, but when somebody remembers and say, "Oh, my father told me this story," no, this person, oh, don't do this, don't do that. You know, it's still
That's exactly what we are telling you.
Yeah.
That's exactly
It's
what we're
still-
talking about. What story?
What
are
your
you
parents
telling?
have told
What
you.
exactly are you
So I think
saying?
we just have to change narrative. And the funniest part is they talk about these things on social media, and then today is Saturday night. If you go to one event center close to you, find out that an Igbo person is getting married to an
Every-
Yoruba person. You know,
every
but
other
then we heard that concerning the governorship aspirants for Lagos State, when people were telling him,
Yeah, he can't be governor because his mother
he's a bastard, or he's not this. These are the
I
kind
think
of
we
things.
both agree that those are just propagandas. People would say anything
But-
to knock you.
Yeah, it's just that those propagandas have actual effects on
Yes,
real human
there is
beings.
this,
It depends on what you believe
Akere
also.
Dolu's wife too. I think they had that
Yeah,
issue
yeah,
too. We
yeah.
had too, because she said she
so-
married.
I
Is
think
it to have an effect on you if you also have that at the back of your mind?
you know, because everybody has, as humans, we have this primordial sentiment,
Yeah.
and there's some of these narratives have a way of stimulating them if you're not enlightened in yourself, and that's also the reason why these conversations are important. And I think it's important in changing narratives, yeah, because part of these things are ignorance.
Exactly.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's the biggest part of it.
Very, very serious kind of ignorance, you know, for you to determine my identity for me based on your own personal experience, which I did not have.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Because I have a friend who is Hausa, who is all shades of great and nice to me. But because my father had a bad experience with a Hausa person,
yeah.
I'm supposed to now be careful. You know, and
Mhm.
start looking at him a certain way. I think that if we're, as young people who are now living life, it's very good to educate ourselves so that we have our own experiences and make our own decisions which are informed. I don't think you should be indifferent about it, because some people need education rather. It depends on who you're talking to. There are people who you can educate and change their narrative.
Yeah.
There are people whose hearts are already set. Those ones you can lead them to their fate. Because it's true. When you talk about the Igbo thing, there are dialects.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a jaw in Bayelsa, there's a jaw in River, there's a jaw in
There's a jaw
Delta.
in Delta. There's a jaw in Ondo.
Every jaw man tells you he's an Ijo man.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the Igbo people, again, because of stereotype, they don't want to be identified as Igbo, so that any negative stereotype will not touch
doesn't
them.
affect them,
But
yeah.
the other side of it is that you now don't have an identity. Because I'm calling you Chukudi, and everybody knows that Chukudi is an Igbo name. So what are you? If I cannot call you what you're not. What are you, really? You know, and I think that these conversations are unfolding conversations, and I really thank you for your insight that you brought into it. It boils down to family. Let's educate ourselves more. let's know that our personal experiences, as important as they may be, we're all human beings. You know terrible people from your village.
Yeah.
No, obviously.
I know wicked people from my village.
That's why they're
So it's not a tribal thing, really. If people are bad, they are bad in and of themselves, not because of the tribe they come from. And some people take this pride that our tribe is the richest tribe. Meanwhile, you as a person, you don't have a dime. It doesn't matter to me anyway. It really doesn't
If I
matter
don't
to
get
me.
money, I get where to borrow.
Anyway, that's a very good way to Thank you very much, guys, for watching. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. Really appreciate you. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe and share this video. My name is Oga Peter. Thank you so much.
nice being here.
When? Thank you very much, David, for
It's
coming.
nice being here. Thank
All
you.
right,
Now
now.
you won't get beheaded.
Oh, I'm glad about that. We're signing off. Bye-bye.